Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? It's your man Jay Kev and Leif Taylor here for
What's
our
happening?
weekly conversation and talking around all things, the pillars of wealth, health, relationships, happiness, everything else in between. Just gonna have a conversation, an open-ended conversation, a free-range conversation, like to where we just talk about whatever uh, seems to pop up in the forefront of our minds. So that's why we titled the show "What's Going On." What's going on with you, Leif?
Shoot, not much, man. I just realized I forgot to play my theme music.
Your
I
theme? What's
was,
what's the theme music?
can you hear it?
What is that? We don't own the rights to this and all that good stuff. I don't know, Leif. It seems like whenever we do that, sometimes stuff gets
Yeah, I know.
disappeared on our
It's
time.
the Smokey Robinson video. That's like my favorite video.
Oh, okay,
It's
yeah.
your time.
Yes. What's the name of that?
Gang banging. Smokey
Gang
Robinson
banging,
gang banging. That was my
Smokey
joint.
Robinson. When they come out? They come out in 2020 or?
I believe so.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody. We're referring to Smokey Robinson's new joint, gang banging or something. So Leif has put me on to that. It's his theme music for now. I think he's gonna make a movie just so he can put that on the soundtrack.
No, like I'm dead serious. I don't know if people believe me. I'm dead serious. I'm gonna make a movie, but that's gonna be the soundtrack.
That is something that needs to be in a movie somewhere. But yeah. So what's been up with you? I know you were talking about attending a conference. We were talking about that.
Yeah, so I was doing like the Light Xbox is still ongoing. It's 3 days: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's for the animation industry. It's actually I was planning on being LA at this time just so I could be there, but
Wow.
obviously that stuff has changed. But luckily, it's way more affordable now. You're talking about hundreds of dollars is now only like $1, $10, or $25 to
Well, that's
attend.
the beauty. That's the bright side of the situation that we find ourselves in 2020. Right, a lot of things that weren't accessible are now accessible. Just thinking about conferences and expos and what people trying to make up and try to maneuver through these times. That's one of the things I kind of want to think kind of hone in on is being agile enough and giving grace enough to just situations and things that are occurring right now to where a lot of people are having to scramble around and kind of just kind of makeshift things together in order to make
Yeah.
keep things going, keep things moving. And when I'm thinking about the school year as far as my children and thinking about giving room and grace to the teachers and the administrators and all those involved as far as educators as far as making things move forward with some form of normalcy as much as we can. And I'm just thinking, I'm thinking about my children and the school year and people having to make adjustments. And just one of the things that came up in a conversation earlier was how some things were being missed as far as assignments and turn-ins and things like that.
Right.
And just after the conversation, it's like, well, we have to be get forgiving as much as we can. I'm not saying just let things just fall apart and go haywire, but as much as you can, be forgiving to that. Just there's a lot of people in tight in situations that having to learn a lot and having to make some adjustments.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just thinking about that and just applying that to every other area of our lives too, and how one of the things I had to learn in life is to extend grace and give humans room enough to be human. Of course, we have to be accountable, and of course, we have to hold tight to um, you know hold tight to some things and make sure that deadlines are met, things are met, obligations, responsibilities taken care of. But at the same time, just giving grace enough to let somebody be a human being give them room enough to get through some things. That helps you, and it helps me when it comes to frustrations, when it comes to headaches, when it comes to unmet expectations. It comes to me even having to think about my expectations and what's to be expected, and how to learn how to um, work with expectations. You know what I'm saying? Am I
Yeah.
making sense?
One thing you said that just made me think about this. Pretty much, a large majority of our expectations are based out of selfishness. And the reason why I say that is like when you mentioned giving grace, like to the teachers, giving grace to whatever, it just made me think about like how people in traffic, if somebody's car is broken down, people will actually get upset and honk at them as if they meant for their car to break down. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Just dumb
yeah,
stuff.
yes,
And it's like, really? Are you that ignorant? And then when I just think about just that and people's expectations of others, is more or less a disappointment. Uh, is more or less that they're disappointed about themselves than anything else. And
yeah,
so just definitely being mindful about that, because when you again when I look at all the things that have gone on are going on now in time of COVID, and now just with a lot of different things, it's a lot of stuff people are upset about is really very insignificant, and it's like, what's the point? So I don't know. I just thought about that when we were talking about giving grace to other people.
yeah. Just shifting. Taking this time. This is a time that's forcing some of us, to have to think about some of the expectations that we may have had in the past, and how those have to be adjusted. There's a lot of things that has to be taken into account with post pandemic, and considering the areas of our lives that have to be pivoted and changed. I seen a post earlier this week by somebody that said, um, if you're expecting things to go back to normal, you might as well give it up. Pick up your bed and walk, meaning, pivot, get up, and just keep things moving as best as you can. Seeing that things aren't going back to, or they seem to not be going back to the way they were before. There's a number of tangents I can go off on that. I'm just thinking about social engineering. I think about social engineering a lot, and how hard it is to get people to change their habits and behavior. But once that's happened, how hard it is to reshape that behavior, unless there's a big enough pain to move the crowd, and get the crowd moving. Hence, the statement that's often made: "Don't let a good crisis go to waste." Given that crisis points of pain offers opportunities to make big shifts and changes in a number of areas when it comes to human behavior, and a number of areas when it comes to just about every aspect of somebody's life. When I'm in a big enough pain or big enough frustration, when it reaches a certain level, it will force me to move, whether I want to or not. So, yeah, just thinking about the times that we're in. And in saying that, I was thinking about, I started reading, I don't know if you ever heard of Jay Shetty. He
No.
just recently came out with a book. What is the name of that book? Daggone it. I'm sorry. He's hitting the circuits now. He's hitting the circuits as far as popularity. Right now, he's an Indian guy that became a monk. He became a monk in his 20s, and it changed his life, and it set his life on a new course.
I think I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, the monk mindset.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Dang, what is the name of the book? Oh, Think Like a Monk, Jay Shetty. And it's number one on Amazon right now, or has been, or it is right now. He's making his rounds on the circuit, and he just talks about living life on purpose and some of the things that entails. And one of the things that entails is being able to be agile and being able to just let go. when it comes to expectations, when it comes to some of the things you may be experiencing in life. If you want to stay on the journey or get on the journey of living with purpose and living with passion. So I didn't mean to ramble too much.
No, you're good.
But that's where I'm at as far as my latest readings and some of the things I'm thinking about and what's going on in my world. That, and then also thinking about the documentary Social Dilemma on Will Smith pushing that
Netflix.
book. Jonathan Broner. Yeah, that's definitely a good book. I definitely recommend it. One of the funny things about that is that sometimes when I see that like surface up to the front, I have a tendency to just avoid it. Does that make sense? When I see stuff like that, I just
like
have a tendency. I just turn it off. I don't even think about it. But I'm glad I gave in and just used my free credit on Audible, and I'm checking it out. So it's pretty good. It's something that's I think is highly. I highly recommend it. It's something just to look into.
I recognize this dude.
Yeah. Yeah, Social Dilemma is something else that's what's been happening. Just thinking about it's a documentary on Netflix talking about social media and the damage it's causing to society. As the insiders who are coming out talking about it are saying, they're saying that they are changing the social fabric of society, and it's something that we have to consider, think about, and look at when it comes to just living our lives, and that things that we experience online does carry over to our offline life. So it's something that we have to really consider and look at and be intentional and purposeful about when it comes to our online life.
Yeah, one of the things so quite a few things stood out to me on the documentary. I watched it, I guess, Wednesday when it came out. So Kevin and I have been talking about this documentary. I posted the link for those of you that don't know what we're talking about. Posted in the Facebook thread or the YouTube thread. And one of the things that I always look at is who's talking and when they're talking. So a lot of these people were ex-engineers, ex-marketers, blah, blah, blah for Facebook, Google, Twitter, and all these Pinterest and all these different platforms. One thing that I always notice, however, is that these people don't speak out till after they have money.
Yes,
so always keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. When you watch these people, look them up. Look up everybody. And you'll see that it's like, oh, okay, they're speaking out against it after they're rich. And some of them are still shareholders with the company. So they're talking about it on one hand, but on the other hand, they really don't care. So keep that in mind. Always keep that at the forefront. And also it leads into what we were talking about earlier in the year when the documentary about Cambridge Analytica came out. It's all tied into the same thing. It's all tied into these algorithms. It's all tied into the destabilization, of the different nations. And also the thing that stood out most to me in the documentary, we talk about it all the time about our algorithms and things like that. But the thing that really stood out to me is the fact that everybody doesn't get the same information, and you have to be mindful of that. So when you're talking about somebody being crazy, or it's like, how can these people not know this? They probably haven't even seen what you're seeing.
What's an example with Google about that?
With Google, the search engines.
Yes.
And I know that because I use different browsers for everything.
But everybody doesn't know that. Can you expound on that when we're talking about these different browsers and search engines, and that you might search a term and I might search something, but depending on some variabilities, we won't come up with the same pages, the same results.
It's like saying, okay, America is, and then it'll give you suggestions, right? And my suggestions may be America is beautiful. Kevin's suggestions may be America is racist. Somebody else's suggestions may be America is,
Great.
patriotism or crazy, whatever. And so it'll give you all of these different suggestions, because they're going to base what they recommend or suggest to you based on your previous history. So it's like, okay, I know that this person likes conspiracy theories, so I'm going to make sure that I
Feed him.
flood his feed with all of these conspiracy theory type sites because I want to keep him engaged and make sure that he's still looking at it, or he or she or whatever. And so when you're on these search engines, be mindful of all of that. And that's the thing. And another thing that they said, which I always say about marketing, no matter how much you know about it, it still works on you. And they
Yes.
say the same thing for themselves.
No, why is that important?
Well, it's important because it's not,
It's
you're
tied.
not going to be stronger than the system.
Well, it's tied. They're directly tapping into the neurological feedback mechanism of what it is to be a human. They have built it.
Better than you.
Yes, it's directly. It's almost as if it's an invisible cord, like in the Matrix, plugged into the back of your neck.
Yeah, literally. And they talk about that. It's like, again, it's like being in the Matrix, except you don't know that you're in the Matrix. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I posted the BOMO. I posted the link in the thread, so you should be able to see it there. But yeah, all of that stuff. And so it's truly an addiction from the way that they talk about it, from the neurological aspects of it. And it's an addiction from the standpoint that you don't even know the real mechanisms of your own addiction.
Yes.
And that's the scary part of it in terms of, I mean, because think about it, we're talking on these platforms now. And literally, I don't know if Kevin had the same reaction because I've done this prior, but after watching it, I started disconnecting all my notifications.
I've done that periodically, yeah.
Yeah, so I literally went through. It's like, okay, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this, and I just started deleting a bunch of apps off my phone. But again, it's really just tapped into the why. Like, why are you so attached to it? Why are you so the infinite feedback? And what's funny, when they were talking about some of the ways that they've changed the UI of it, I remember those changes. I remember specifically when those things happened, and it was like, they talked about the infinite scroll, and the benefit from their standpoint of the infinite scroll is you release dopamine when you anticipate something new. At first, it used to be, I remember it used to be page by page. You had to either scroll to the bottom of Facebook and click more information, or it had to where you would go from one page to the next, kind of like the old Google search or the current Google search. And so the way they start manipulating, and actually I think Pinterest really was the one that capitalized off of that when they developed the infinite scroll, because in the early days of Pinterest, the infinite scroll would just be repeated information. And I don't even know if people even noticed that. But again, because I was in that space, we studied that stuff all the time to see what they were doing to put hooks in people to make sure that they wouldn't leave. And so just looking at all of these different things, looking at, the likes and the addictions to that, and what that and how that affects you, and how that draws you in, and how that makes you keep coming back. I wonder, because they were talking about it in the documentary, whether or not there'll be an end to it. Like, how does this end? And so that's definitely interesting to see.
Yeah, Netflix is all Asian suggestions for me. They keep you hooked on what.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah, like.
He speaks language. He speaks Mandarin, so that's why.
Oh, okay. That's cool. And why is this relevant today? And right now, as I'm speaking, I'm thinking about the election cycle, and I'm thinking about how those lines of division are always amplified around times like this. Not only just times like this is an election year, but also 2020 has just been a divisive year. And then when you pour gasoline on it with social media, it just makes for an even more crystallized segregation of blockage. Like voter blocks and people blocks, how you can group people into certain blocks, and then you have a more predictable and dependable block that you can maneuver on the worldwide stage, chessboard, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
And
I'll
you
get
know,
back to
we're,
that.
we're just not talking. Right now, I'm thinking about Myanmar.
Yeah, Myanmar. Yeah.
How Facebook uh, came out with the report saying that their platform was used as far as fanning the flames of when it came to the genocide, or mass um, uh, homicide of a people over in Myanmar. That's just
Yeah.
one example.
And again, I mean, but you see it now. You see it
Yes.
in the U.S.
Yeah.
Forget Myanmar, because that's few and far between for a lot of people to even
Right.
comprehend that. But you see that on Facebook. And when you were talking, one of the examples that I think about is the difference between the people whose work hasn't changed versus other people.
Hmm.
So, and what I mean by that, so I had this discussion with one of my relatives, my cousin, and I was like, how have things been for you since the whole pandemic? He's like, well, my work schedule hasn't changed, so his life is pretty much the same.
Right.
For anybody else whose work schedule has changed in terms of your home more, your online more, your view of the world is way different. Not only are you getting different segments of information in terms of what you see on your timeline,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting more of it because you're spending more time there. Work is typically a distraction away from social media. It's a forced distraction away from social media. And for
Yeah.
all the people that are working at home, they're spending more time on social media. So when you look at companies like Amazon, Kevin knows that. You look at what other companies? I guess eBay, Facebook, all of these companies that are centered around social engagement online, all their prices have gone up because everybody's stuck. They have an active audience in a sense. There's no break away from it because you're not under most people a lot of people are working from home and they're not working in the office to where their boss can be like, you need to put that down, you need to turn that off and all of that. So they're basically not forced away from it. And because of that, then their views are definitely being manipulated more often than the people who are working and who are away from it throughout the day. So the fact that everybody's viewer time is going up means that the bots can really zoom in on you
Hone
and
in.
start manipulating those things that you are attracted to. Because here's another thing most people don't know, especially tech people. That's why when I'm on Facebook, I watch Facebook in a container. And what I mean by that, and the same thing for Google, that's why I use different browsers. Because unless you contain Facebook, then they literally track everything you do. So your recommendations, your suggestions, and all of that are based off of your browser history and not just your viewership on Facebook. And most
That's
people don't
that's
know that.
that's one of the things that came out in the documentary, to where, even though I'm aware, but when you watch the documentary, it's like, man, there's really people like that really knows your deepest, darkest searches. They know everything
Oh,
about
I've been on it, like literally. Because I try to tell my wife she don't listen to me, but but like I only watch certain things and certain things just so, and it's not just because I'm trying to keep everything a secret, but I just don't want anybody having a complete history on me, right? And so, and that's probably not even more secure. Really, probably the most secure way is just to not be on it altogether.
right.
However, when you break away from all of that, then other things start happening because now you become an anomaly in the social stratus, and anomalies are kind of the worst thing to be sometimes. So I just want to throw that out there.
Well, that's the reality. That's why I said, it's one of those things. It's one of those things. We are being forced to adjust to and to learn how to maneuver through, whether we want to or not. As I'm talking, I'm thinking about my kids, and one's asking me, "Can I get on Instagram?" Like, no, So I'm being forced into having to deal with and grapple with, the online life, whether I want to or not, because however I feel about it, good, bad, or indifferent, those that are connected to me that I have influence over, is another generation that has to learn how to maneuver through this world, in that they are born into it. I remember hearing the little sound when you first connect to the internet. They have no clue. So this is, for them, this is normal. For me, this is like still brave new world type thing.
Yeah, it again, to me is really interesting, and I even think about it in terms of lives, in terms of people who you interact with, and I often keep track of the friends that I see online, because that changes too. Like, for example, when I got off Facebook for, I'll say, probably 2 weeks in a row. I was off Facebook for a solid 2 weeks, other than us coming on the broadcast, because I wasn't posting anything. I noticed that the influence I had when I did post after that changed drastically. So I could
Yep.
post something and get hundreds of views and hundreds of likes. And then after that hiatus period, I post something, it was like maybe 20 max.
Yep.
And so I was keeping track of that. Not only that, I could also see the difference in the people whose things I was seeing on my own timeline. It's like, oh, I noticed if and any of you can do this experiment.
Yep.
Pick somebody random from your friends list that you don't communicate with and write to them. Make a comment on a post that they have. Just go look them up. Make a comment on the post that they have. I guarantee you'll start seeing their information in your newsfeed. And so you can start seeing how and again, a lot of it's just automated, AI, the bots, and basically all they do is just run a script. It's like, okay, this worked, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. Okay, boom, this works. So let's start feeding things that are associated with this, because there seems to be an interest there. And it's really just a process of elimination. It's just like your Netflix, like, okay, these are the things I like, these are the things I don't like. And then they'll start curating based around your preferences. The same thing happens with your timeline. So if you engage with somebody who you weren't previously engaged with, then that'll start changing your algorithm in terms of your timeline and who you see. And what's funny is, I remember for the longest, I never saw any of my wife's posts. We live in the same house, got the same IP address, the whole nine. Her posts wouldn't even show up on my feed. And so I started noticing those things, because we would talk in the house as opposed to online.
Yeah.
So because we did that, none of the things she posted would show up on my feed. And so just keep that in mind in terms of what you're seeing, how you're seeing it, and not only that, but the information you're seeing as well.
Yes, that's what I was gonna. Yeah, you were going in that direction. Yeah, be aware of the information that you're seeing, and be aware of how that information triggers you emotionally, and just try to get a handle on your emotions and your feelings when it comes to social media, and just know that the goal is to trigger emotional responses. That way you don't think, and you just respond, react, and that keeps you engaged. So just be aware of it.
And one of the things that they kept mentioning in the video, the documentary, whatever, is the fact that there was like, fake news is the news, because that's what people are engaged with. And so that statement alone, because they said it several times, and of course, and trust me, when I look at all these things, I know that they're propaganda as well. Yes. Everything that you see, even us talking to you, everything that you see media-wise is propaganda in terms of getting you to think a certain way, or getting you to view things a certain way. Yeah. So always keep that in mind. Don't ever forget that. And this is any medium, and the motives are different, but there's always a motive. Like we spread certain information to inform you on the things that we learn. Our motive is to educate, or as Kevin says, edutain, right? That's our motive. So that means that there's some form of propaganda behind what we're telling you. And keep that in mind when you're watching any documentary. I always, again,
anything,
anything, because I always assume that whoever's telling me a story, I always think about what their motive is behind telling me the story. And then again, for the people that were talking, I'm like, they're telling me this after they've already profited and gotten rich off of it. And now they're trying to change a different narrative. But even if you pay attention to the people that are in the documentary itself, they all have their own companies. And their own companies are going toward a certain way. So if you do change, they'll profit off of that as well. So keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. But anyway, just going back to this, think about your usage. And if you, I don't know if they have it on Android, but on your Mac devices, you can actually see how long you use any given thing.
Wow.
Yeah, you can track. It's like for me, I always track how much work I'm doing versus how much I'm watching any other app. And so I can see that on my, I forgot what it's called. Let me look at it real quick. It's called, I want to say productivity. Yeah, screen time is just screen time on a Mac. And so it just lets you know, okay, you spend, like, for example, I can look at, today I was watching all the videos. So most of my screen time is around Zooms and Safari, because that's where I was watching the things. But anyway, be mindful of that, and especially be mindful of what your kids watch as well. I know Kevin mentioned, his children being, bugging him about social media. Like none of my kids have social media accounts. Everything that they watch, uh, YouTube is the only social media engagement that they have, and they don't have a YouTube account, so they use my wife's account so we can keep track of everything that they watch. We know what they watch when they watch it, but you have to micromanage to that point because there's so many ways that influences are embedded into the media that they get. And not only the bots you have to worry about. For example, I was on a talk last night. We were talking about cartoons and some of the things that they interject in cartoons. And, we were talking about the difference between, how some cartoons are regulated, other cartoons aren't. But we really started focusing on parents. It's like some parents don't care what their kids watch. So it don't matter if it's a cartoon or not because they watching everything else in between. And so the ratings of the cartoon don't even matter anyway. For something. So anyway, just be mindful of what you take in. And again, sometimes you don't even know you're taking it in, which is the hard part.
That's yeah. Yeah, that's funny you said it. Somebody asked me, or a little kid asked me, why is it that even though when you watch something on TV, you still react to it and you still take it as real? I had explained to him, that your brain cannot distinguish when it visually sees something on TV or on a screen or whatever, whether it's real or not. It's still going to react as if it's a real situation. For example, if you watch a movie and somebody gets punched in the gut, sometimes a lot of us may feel it or, hunch over or whatever. And that even though somebody drowning, first, whatever the situation is going on, you're going to emotionally be in that situation, even though you're technically not in it. That's the power of the screen, in that you can experience life, as so many of us do, through the screen, even though we're actually not living. So we're living. A lot of us are living simulated life, Second Life. You can actually make money in Second Life. Just sidebar. I was watching YouTube where they're having millionaires.
It goes back to Bomo, right?
What do you say? Is there a way that people can get paid for being online? Man, yeah. There's so many ways. There's a trillion. Thinking about Second Life. I remember years ago listening to a podcast of a young lady who was on welfare and she became rich by playing Second Life or one of them online games. And she said she wouldn't recommend it, but she was like, somehow or another, she got involved in a program later on, finding out that it was like the CIA or somebody that was paying people to experiment with online life and whether they can actually do something with it. And she invested in real estate and in a store on Second Life or one of the online games. And then she translated it into real money or cash money.
Yeah, there was I can't even think of it now. Sometimes I wear the shirt and I forgot the name that's on the shirt. I'll probably think about it later. But anyway, I want to say Entropia. Yeah, Entropia. There have been millionaire like people who have sold real estate, virtual real estate for millions of dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that stuff is it. Here's the thing, though. It's just like when we talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and things like that. Early adopters are the ones who make the most money, and the reason being is one is because the opportunities are greater at the beginning. Two, if it's a game, then the skill sets are developed early before most people get on. And so, if you really want to make money, then you have to set again, I always put it like this. People I see posts online sometimes like, okay, what industries can you make money in? And it's pretty much any industry.
Yeah.
Any industry that has a market cap or has any value at all, you can make money from. The fact I always say this: the fact that somebody can make money from selling a sandwich means you can make money from doing anything. It's a freaking sandwich, beating bread. Come on, people, you've been doing this since you were a kid. But because that is, it's like you just have to focus on that. Right? You just have to focus your energy, just like me doing drawing. Everybody starts drawing, when as soon as they get a pencil or some crayon, everybody does it, but not everybody pursues it to make money. So in terms of making money online, just develop something, and they even talked about it in the documentary. Pay for ads. Spend money.
Yeah.
If you want people to view your stuff, if you want people to buy your whatever, your whatchamajigums, your doohickeys, and all in between, sell it online. Sell it through ads. But the difference there is you have to know the kind of people that want your stuff. That's where the mastery of ads comes into play.
But that's where the time comes in. And
you have to understand who your real customer audience is. And most people that make stuff don't understand who their audience is. And so once you understand who your audience is, then you can start catering your product, or not even cater your product, just make your product and know the people that buy that product. It's like the fidget spinners, right? When it took off and they took off early, but now somebody trying to get into fidget spinners probably won't make any money because all the fidget spinner people have been identified and they've already made their money from them. So again, it's an early adopter type game, first mover market, all of that kind of stuff. But again, just pay attention and be intentional. That's one thing about online life that I don't think a lot of people really take into mind is you have to be intentional. You have to be and even if you're intentional, you can still get sidetracked and swept in the current of information like everybody else. But at least if you're intentional, you'll know when you're deviating from your game plan.
And yes, awareness. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Awareness is a big factor. And just being aware and knowing if that's where you want to go or allow yourself to go at any given moment. Like sometimes I do allow myself to go down certain rabbit trails for moments of exploration, curiosity, adventure, exploration, discovery. I do for moments. But then I'm aware, so I have to bring myself back or cut it off or get back to doing whatever I need to be doing. But yeah, being intentional and going and having a purpose about what you're doing and pursuing when it comes to making money. Making money, like you said, you can make money online doing anything, but is it in alignment with your core personality, your core traits, your core innate inclinations, something that's going to make your soul happy, that versus just making your pocketbook happy. The world is full of examples. Hollywood is full of examples of people who have plenty of money or whatever, but aren't satisfied with the soul, in their soul. So
it was funny. I remember this. Man, it's crazy to think about it. This is probably over 20 years ago. I knew a dude that was making money off of fakes. Like, deep fakes are a thing now. I mean, that stuff's always been available. And it's like, I used to tell people, like, if I really wanted to make money, I could make money, no problem. I know how to make money. I know what's selling and all of those kinds of things. But again, like you said, those things aren't something that I could live with or that I care for. I mean, the porn industry, it takes nothing to get into that, to be honest. And it's like, okay, I know how to manipulate data. I know how to manipulate videos. I know how to manipulate pictures. I can do all of that stuff. I can go buy a host of things and resell it and make money. But again, that doesn't align with my values, my morals, or anything like that. So I don't. And so you have to know where your line is. You have to know where you draw the line. Me and Kevin talk about this stuff in terms of knowing what marketing, how to market and how to persuade people to do certain things. And that's why we haven't ran any ads yet, because there's certain dilemma things that it's like, I don't know if we want to do that. So just keep in mind, like you said, understanding what your goal is, understanding what you want to live with or what you can live with. Some people, I know a lot of people that are like, okay, we'll make money first and then we'll get, Jesus later kind of stuff. But sometimes it doesn't always work out in your favor that way. So you have to keep all of that stuff in mind, definitely.
I would ask Mo, what is it that he's interested in when it comes to making money online? What are some things that he's thought about or thinking about or considering? Just curious.
Or anybody else for that matter. I mean,
or anybody else, yeah.
Because again, right now, online is the world, to be honest.
That circles back around to, post-pandemic world, and that our habits and as a society has now been shifted, and it's now in the process of being crystallized and to not only stand this way, but start growing in the trajectory of this way of having the Matrix surrogate. Have you ever seen the movie Surrogate with Bruce Willis? I'm thinking about that. Where people in the future stay in their houses and they only go outside in these surrogate humanoid robots.
Probably. I've seen so many movies. I probably have.
But things are being shifted in that, take any dystopic or any futuristic sci-fi movie, and things are being pushed in that way as hard and fast as we possibly can. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking about the World Economic Forum. And if you go on there and you look at they have a platform called the COVID-19 platform, I think it's something like that. But anyway, it's a non-government organization. I often talk about them. I keep track of them just because they talk about things that align with my interests. And I just can't help it. I'm just this way. But they talk about, like, one of the headlines is turning crisis into opportunity. How to finance a sustainable recovery. What does that mean? What are you talking about? So you gotta go read what they're saying, see who's involved, see who's paying who to do what. So just this is how you don't have to predict the future. You just read the future when it comes to movers and shakers and where money is being funneled. And when you know that and when you're aware of it, then that you can position yourself to have a better outcome than if you're just kind of just on the Titanic or on the ship and don't know what's going on and how you're going to make music. You just, I guess I'll say this seat and listen to music as the ship goes down, but you don't have to. There's lots of information out there, as we often talk about, that can help you make some better decisions than not.
Yeah,
it's the COVID Action platform.
Gotcha.
And it's like 300 and something levels deep, as far as all the areas of which how you go from concept to actualization.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking, watching the expo videos and all the different talks. Yeah, at Lightbox, one of the guys I was just watching before I came on air, he was talking about things right now, because most studios are working from home. I did some contract work for a studio sitting in my house, right? And he was saying that this will probably stay the norm until something goes wrong. If it's working, then okay, then they'll probably stay with the same model. And that's the thing with a lot of stuff that is changing. They're like, when we go back, if it stays working, then there won't be a go back. There will be no need to go back. unless it's economically beneficial to go back to a certain way for certain industries. But most industries, once the shift has taken place, it's already a done deal.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, we'll work on this model. And then not only that, but for a lot of businesses, it's easier to work with contractors than it is to have employees. It's like, you know what, this model's working. We'll put everybody on a contractual basis, make them contractors. Now they can get their own health insurance. They can do so. Basically, start investing in health insurance if you want to make money from the stock, because that's where the money's going to be. They've been predicting that for the past 50 years. So
yeah. It's funny. A lot of things that has been predicted it's come faster than what I even thought. You often think about, okay, it's going to be years down the line. But it's like, dang, this is right around the corner. As I'm talking, I'm thinking about Gary Vee, and he's been talking for a long time about the paradigm shift. And he's like, well, you had like so many years to prepare. Why are you off guard? And I was like, well, I was procrastinating. My bad. It hit.
It's like a good idea only, right?
Yeah, it sounds good, an idea, as long as I can go out and do my thing. But now, no. So that's all I had, Leif.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and ramble, but I won't. So we can cut it short here unless anybody has a question or comment. But yeah, just be mindful. I know mindfulness is a big thing now, but just be aware of your circumstances. Be aware of what you engage in. Be aware of what's engaging you. Be aware of your reactions to those things, and just be aware of how that's affecting your household, how that's affecting your income, and how that's affecting your health. And the health is probably the last thing that you'll notice, because a lot of the things that kill us are silent killers. So you want to make sure that by managing your online content, by managing the things that you experience online, you basically can help save your health in the long term, because those stresses and those things that they're getting you all riled up about every 4 year, actually every 2 year cycle, because intermittent elections between that, those things can literally kill you. So just be mindful of that. Make sure that you manage your stress. Quit following people that stress you out. Quit arguing with people you don't know. What's the point? It's only killing you. And besides, you're probably arguing with a bot anyway. A lot of the people you argue with don't even exist. So just be mindful of that, and just keep your head on the swivel and stay away from social media as often as possible. I mean, I know I'm on it. We're all on it right now, obviously, but utilize it as a tool and don't let the tool utilize you.
Okay. That's a good adage to leave out on, a good principle to cultivate for all of us. Just leave out on. Yep. So Two Shot Guys at the mic, Leif and Kevin, J Kev here, having a conversation about all things health, wealth, relationships, happiness. What's going on was a topic for tonight. We drifted into areas of social dilemma, the documentary, and then also talking about some other things too. So that's all I got. Hit like, share, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Peace out.